Welcome to the Be the Glue series, where we share short and casual but impactful conversations with individuals who have been the glue by bringing people, ideas, or efforts together. And today I'm joined by a fellow disruptor and a great colleague, Sean Bengry, the owner of Sablethorn and a transformation and leading tech leader at learning tech leader at DaVita. Welcome, Sean. So nice to have you.
Pleasure being here. Thank you very much.
So, Sean, I love our conversations and I love the work you do as you help teams really move from this ambiguity to making it more intentional, right? Into that operational reality. As you are in the trenches of learning tech and HR and strategy, what does the glue mean to you?
Um, it's a great question. And I used to have a leader that always used to call times we would get together and be face to face in this very telecommute, work from home world that we have those opportunities. By the way, I've been working from home remotely for the last 15, 16 years before it was cool to do so. And every time we would get together with our large group, he would say, "We're building the human glue and the stickiness that really brings us together," right? And I've used that phrase so much because I think, working in a very virtual world, even over the course of us right now, we're probably less than 5 miles, 10 miles away from one another. Yet we're still working like this. It's very important to have those moments to be that human glue, and encourage that or grow that human glue between us. And that usually happens whenever you're physically right in the same room with one another. So there's a little anecdote before I answer your question. I think the most for me, being in learning technology, talent technology, and the way it's being leveraged now as a huge transformative lever of how we move to a future state or a higher up the maturity model, whatever, or a better, faster way of doing things. What's also important for me in terms of being the glue, so to speak, is that the things that I just mentioned, when we're saying like moving up in the maturity model of an organization or moving to a new workflow or something better, faster, all of those require humans. And so to me, being the glue is sort of being the connective tissue between the technology that is supposed to enable a future and the people that are supposed to live in that new future. So being the glue to me is sort of bridging that gap and providing both understanding of what things can do and the possibility and potential of what things can do, and also just being very empathetic and being heartfelt of bringing people along as a good ambassador to what that future looks like.
Wow. So many thoughts there. So the human glue. Holy cow, I had never thought about that. That is and how pertinent today, right? In today's world where we're talking all these, challenges in the world. Um, and then from a learning tech perspective, so I feel like partially the world that I'm in now, it's what we were talking before a little bit offline, in the messiness of data and the messiness of all these technologies. And how do you see, I guess, learning technologies and learning talent teams uh, being in the middle? Are you finding yourself being more at the table earlier on than before when organizations were starting initiatives? Do you see being more present earlier in the process, or are we still seeing a challenge of having that seat at the table? Because we did go through quite, some time that we're still trying to prove, like, look at learning tech, look at HR tech, look at tech in general, how we can support HR, right?
That's a great question, and I can only answer from my experience. Been in multiple organizations and consulting organizations, and now in industry at DaVita, and even through my own only my own workforce. What I've found is that the answer to your question doesn't lie in technological evolution or maturity. A technology doesn't, whether it's just e-learning, cloud-based, mobile, social, anything that can enable. And now this new world that we're living in of intelligence, it doesn't enable one to get to the table of being a good um, representative, trusted advisor, all of the cliche terms that we want to be by sitting at that same virtual or physical table with our C-suite. Rather, it is the person itself and the skills you need to understand and a buy-in to be empathetic to those leaders at the table and understanding what keeps them up at night, a true understanding of what the business is trying to accomplish, the constraints they have around resources and other things that they're trying to solve for, and also the problems that they are just struggling with, and then how they are using both talent, capability, people's capability to achieve the goals that they think are right for their organization, as well as learning as a capability development or performance enablement to enable the people to do those types of things.
Yeah.
So as soon as you come to a realization and understand the vocabulary and truly understand the problems and challenges that those leaders are having, that's the aha moment for you as a person. And then you're leveraging the technology to help you along and tell a better story, whether that's with data, whether that's with some evolutionary kind of like capability you're able to achieve now, speed, efficiency, or productivity, or just layers of an insight or intelligence. The technology enables humans. So I just found that if you want a seat at the table, lean in. Don't expect the technology to get you there. It's a maturity of your own mind and your own work to get you there.
Well, and that's the challenge I'm in it now, because usually like organizations will go in and purchase all these tools without doing what you just described. And then suddenly you have all these different tools not talking to each other. There's zero governance, data, there's, kind of different processes are duplicated. You have AI being slapped on top of ineffective process so that you just get into, right, like that messiness. Um, but you talk a lot. I'm trying to think. I hear you talk a lot about agency, and as we're in such an ambiguous, I think, workplace. What
Mhm.
what does agency mean?
It's a great question, and one that many people that are on my team would probably have the right answer for because I push it so hard as one of the measuring sticks that I use to figure out can a person get something done in this future that we're in right now. And I see it as, first of all, the state of mind right now that there's never been more of a need to have agency. And just to set the stage before I answer your question,
Mm.
as we've evolved from just like the brick and mortar and the pre-internet and then the internet knowledge worker, and how we are, kind of ways of working have evolved from just the over the last 10 or 12 years as workflows are either more hyper like efficient because of technology and the forces, less about geopolitical, less about methodology, even though some things are around those. My point in saying that is that never has there been a moment in time where agency has been more important, because even with the whole like mom and papa, right, the one career for your entire life, and then it became maybe, three or four careers in your life. If we switched, now it becomes, feels like the careers are shortening, right? Kind of thing, where
Yep.
you're going to get
Yeah.
what you're going to be doing for the rest of your, professional or working life. Agency was important, but it was very, like, compared to today's standard, very stable, right? You could hide yourself in a large organization and be very, very good at maybe one thing, or understand the company culture really, really well, and not say sit down, but not have a lot of agency. You can be very operational in nature, transactional in nature, and your value as you gained more company tacit or explicit knowledge, you became more valuable by what
Yeah.
what you knew, right, and less about what you did. Now it's all about the value that you provide. as the gap between the tacit and explicit knowledge gets closer and closer to what technology can do and understand on how to do about jobs and what we are capable of. It's agency is unbelievably important in terms of just be having the motivation to do things at speed and velocity,
Yeah.
and then knowing that, yes, you have to analyze up front. You can, I don't know, you've heard of the UDA model, which is gaining steam now in Silicon Valley, but it means like um, observe, orient, decide, and act. And that cycle is just move fast, move fast, move fast, because that denotes more information. And then you're able to consume that information and then act. So I think just having the motivation to move at speed is one thing. The next thing is to use your word that you used earlier about ambiguity and just the nebulous of today's
Yeah.
or how today's work is nebulous and culture can be nebulous, is people who are able to sort of push through that ambiguity and not understand it fully, but ask the right questions instead of waiting
Mm.
for the fog to clear, being that person who turns on the light and moves forward, trying to understand it, right? So that is another thing too, is just pushing through ambiguity. And I think, and then finally, I would say agency has a great deal about reframing. With every single situation, you have there's only certain things that you can control. Many people lean into what they can't control. They see reductions in workforce, right? They see a change in process. They see you have to adopt a specific technology. And we, as much as we love changing in our own personal lives, sometimes we hate, I mean, we're not really geared to change constantly. And now it's happening all the time. So the ability to sort of see an opportunity out of what some people might consider a very anxious moment, right? A very like a very scary moment, whether it's a reduction in workforce, whether it is like an organizational change model that comes through and you're like, you're in a different position, you're not knowing where you're going to go. The ability to sort of reframe that as an opportunity instead of something to sit back and just complain about is pretty darn important now. So I would qualify agency as those three things: the
Yeah.
motivation to move at speed, the ability to push through ambiguity, and the ability just to reframe it to create a positive moment out of what some people might seem as negative.
I love that. I love that. And you're making me think about like you have to be that calm in the chaos for others around you. And I think that's part of being that glue. How can you still be calm when everybody else is freaking out? Or or maybe I think emotional intelligence is going to be some of those skills and emotional intelligence that as leaders and as HR professionals, as a learning professionals, I think those are going to be at the forefront. And for our people, I mean, I think about my kids too. Like, what do I teach them? They can learn anything, but can I make sure they're good humans? They are, you know, being able to live in this ambiguity. I love how you placed it in those three um, kind of buckets of how we can approach and grow agency. I love that framework.
And it's tough too. I think a true leader is on their way if they can embody those three characteristics: attitudes, mindsets, behaviors, whatever you want to call them, those three
Mhm.
characteristics. But what I have found is that it's one thing to reframe a situation or act with agency on all three, but it's another thing to actually help others reframe and help others push through
Mm.
ambiguity. And that's what I think a true leader is. Not a manager, a true leader is can inspire that behavior in others, or at least take a moment to say, you know, this is what you're thinking. Have you considered the alternative now? Right, kind of thing. Have you taken a step back? You know, these are all things that you need to react to because we need to go through those sort of stages of that change curve.
Motion. Yeah.
Right, exactly. At the same time, if you can reframe something to be like an opportunity, right? Like, what can I do? What do I have the ability to do right now? At instead of saying like, "Well, man, I gotta sit back and think about this." Oh, I I can't wait to find out what my new job is going to be like. Can you actually go out and define what your new job is going to
Yeah.
be? Can you just reach out to somebody and say, this is what I'm thinking. I'm seeing these changes. This is the
Yeah.
opportunity I'm seeing. I'm seeing the pain you are in or the friction you are in, boss, supervisor,
Mhm. Mhm.
coordinator. How can I help you? What can I take away from that? And that is like a reframe. And I think so teaching those characteristics for the people that you serve as a leader makes it even as a step change for the leader itself.
Yeah.
Embodying those characteristics are the first step to becoming a true leader, but helping others to embody them is the step change above that.
I feel like it starts with curiosity though, because you got to have, and I think you've said this before, curiosity is part of it because you got to be curious to even be able to pause and listen to those around you and be interested in what their challenges are, right? Instead of constantly just keep going, doing what you're
Yeah.
doing and not even, right? So so are you seeing, I guess, what are the trends you're seeing? What are the challenges you're seeing now that are kind of at the forefront um in our in learning tech and HR tech? What are you
I would
I know, right? It's a very
technologies.
big question,
Yeah,
I
I
feel
mean, it's
like.
like there's the people. I mean, anxiety, I would say number one. I
Mm,
mean,
mm,
even with the
okay.
reports that just came out right now, you might be surprised to know that the United States is through one report through A16Z is like number 20 of all the countries in the world in AI adoption. And so you would think about, hey, guess what? Oh, you've got ChatGPT, you've got Claude, you've got Gemini, all of these little companies in Silicon Valley or sitting in Austin that you would drive these foundational models. That's where all of the work has happened. So I mean, we have the culture, we have the environment, it's been fostered, right? Everybody should be using it because this is kind of like quote American, right? These are all things,
Mhm.
and in reality, that's not the case. There is still a large amount of just first of all, anxiousness that these tools are going to take my job. So with that anxiety becomes fear. And back to my sort of comment about agency, the only way to combat fear or anxiety is action. And so you need to take action to sort of, whether that's driven through curiosity or driven through empathy or whatever, you just need to take action to learn what these are. And as you learn, then you reframe exactly what they can do or can't do, right? And then you sort of understand what the future could or could not be.
Yeah.
But anxiety still is the driver of many decisions to not adopt some of these technologies. And honestly, I do think like the non-movement um, and leaning into anxiety or fear is actually is a is going to be one of the things that will prevent someone to becoming more marketable in the future if you're just sitting back and saying these things. Another one is where anxiety or fear think it's going to take away something that I currently have. Another one could be the um, uh, the sort of thought of that AI is evil and
Mm.
that ethically it's wrong. And that we have to stop doing it because ultimately is going to take away even things from like artisans, right? Even though I may not be a musician, I don't like the idea of it taking away something human. Even though I may not be an artist, I don't like it taking away something that might be art. So I think there's also, I wouldn't call that anxiety or fear, but it's almost like righteous anger, saying, no, you don't use it for these specific ethical or moral standards. And I think both have their cases. I mean, you do have to go in through every new technology with a healthy amount of skepticism to see kind of what is the use versus abuse,
Mhm.
versus purpose built versus just hype. But at the same time, what I'm back to what I said, I think that both of these barriers are in the workforce right now. They're being seen as either I'm going to write it out and just retire and don't have to worry about it. Or I think I'm in a safe space, so I'm not going to worry about it, even this
Yep.
pressure's
Yep.
coming. Um, or even like I refuse to do it. Um, and then there's the lean in, but like the half lean in, right? Kind of thing where it's like,
Yep.
okay, somebody told me to do it and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. I don't. It
And
didn't work. I had tried this thing. So I just see those as being the two characteristics that are holding people back when you ask in learning tech or technology in general. Fear, anxiety, and righteous anger, or
yeah.
kind of a push. Yeah.
And I'm finding myself trying to be that translator a lot in the business between IT and HR. I don't know if you experience something similar, but I think we have an opportunity. And I was talking with our friend Hernan the other day, and we're thinking about, there's so much opportunity for HR professionals to be at the forefront of this. Like this is change management with AI adoption. How can we be at the forefront? The challenge is we're not technical enough. Not, as a profession, we struggle. Other than individuals in people ops or HR tech or learning tech that you have been managing systems and tools, it's very hard, I think, for us to be leading this. But I think
Yeah.
it has to be a co-creation with IT, a co-creation with ops. I don't know.
I think you could be right. I think that it's definitely a partnership with IT as we start to enter into this world of IT can, for the first time ever, controlling intelligence, right? Where it used to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
intelligence and capability, where it used to be like HR was controlling that kind of, when you say control is a very, maybe a strong word, but facilitating, enabling intelligence through the
Enabling. Yes.
right through the lens of human capability and
Mhm.
human performance.
Mhm.
Now we have IT through the separate lens of just
Yeah.
enabling, machine intelligence or machine performance, right? Which is now more powerful than ever. It's going to be
Right.
a step change in the human society. So yes, I would say that there's a partnership there. There's going to have to be a partnership in every domain, let alone HR. It could be finance, could be field work, could be et cetera, et cetera. It just HR is one piece of it. I would say though that the people that are going to be very, very successful in the future are those that are domain experts in one or two things and can leverage AI to be to basically build their function or their lane in their organization in a way that currently isn't hasn't been even thought of yet. So if you're learning, if you're an instructional designer, let's call the air
Yeah.
quotes an instructional designer, right? The piece of it. Are you good at instructional design? And what does that mean? Are you good and can you be good at maybe instructional design and graphic design? And how do you leverage AI to go deep, right? To basically just 10 or 100x
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
right? Because it is going to be what people usually call unicorns right now. Like they're really, really good at like two or three domains. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm calling it's like that instead of the T shape, right? Where you're broad in a lot of skills and you go deep in
Yep.
one,
Yep.
right? That's really good. But what's better is people who are either pie shaped, right? Like if you think about the shape of
Yep.
pie, we're deep in two, or a trident shape. Like, so I'm trying to like three at the bottom. So I'm trying to find myself in this sort of intersection of what two or three things am I really, really passionate about, really, really good about. And it's less
Mm.
about the partnership with IT and more about how can I leverage AI and leverage new technologies and new ways of thinking to get really, really good at those three and like really 10x myself as because I understand the intricacies. And for me personally, it probably would be I know what learning strategy looks like. I know what learning design and development looks like. And I know what learning technology looks like, right? And I can see the intersections because of just the way that my career has kind of, gone through this pattern of evolution. And I can see the patterns between or the connections or the beautiful mosaic between those three domains. And so how can I leverage artificial intelligence to go really, really deep on those three? And then it might be some weird ones too. Like I really love soccer, right? I really love United States men's soccer team. I really love cocktails and mixology. Is there an opportunity to sort of connect my design and development
Yep.
field with mixology and learning technology? So I mean, I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about professionally. So there is some truth to what you said about partnering with IT to bring these types of capabilities to the workforce and making sure like what does it mean for machine intelligence to work with human intelligence. I think that you're right there. But at the same time, I would still encourage the people that are going to be super successful, right? Encourage those people to start with curiosity and start playing and doing the stuff that you
Yeah.
really, really, really love. Don't do stuff, like if you're in a job right now, you don't really like your job, you don't really like what you're doing, you're probably not going to be really like, oh my God, I got to get freaking, AI here now. And now I'm like trying to use technology to do more of the stuff I don't like. Lean into what you do like.
Yeah.
Lean into what you're really, really good at. Lean into what, Japanese would say, ikigai, right? That the
Yes.
intersection of kind of like all of those things. And so I mean, there's an opportunity here. Yes, I agree with you on the IT needs to be a kind of
Yeah.
a strategic enabler with the business. At the same time, I'm saying you need to be an enabler of yourself and lean into it.
How do we get there? How there is so much information everywhere, right? So
Ah,
yes, passions. So how do we get there?
yeah, it's it. There's so many tools. It can be overwhelming. It's overwhelming
Yeah.
for me. I'll be quite honest with you, Alina. There are times where I do not sleep at night because um, I feel like I'm being left behind simply because I am
Yeah.
not reading what's latest because it's
Yeah.
moving so quickly, right? So I think the first step in sort of like how do you get started is an acknowledgement that any action is better than
Yep.
inaction. And so that any small action is better than inaction, as you know from like either James Clear or BJ Fogg,
Yep.
from the tap of like Atomic
Yes.
Habits, et
Yes.
cetera. You like
Tiny
start
habits.
small, right? Just
Yep.
like right, exactly. Tiny
Yeah.
habits or atomic habits. Like start small, start very, very small. And then people don't realize like just if they haven't used something like a chat GPT or a Claude or a Gemini, if they haven't used those types of things or haven't used it in a very novel way or a way they haven't thought of before, or just looking at it online saying, how can I get better at these things, or haven't used Mid Journey or Seed Dance or
Yeah.
Rock
Yeah.
or like there's just pick your poison or Suno or right
Yes.
kind of thing. So just experiment and play. And by doing it for like 5 minutes, then do it for like maybe 6 minutes the next day,
Yep.
right? You go back to 2 minutes the next day. Doing something a little every single day to explore is better than doing nothing. So I would say when you say how, like how do we make that change? I would say first of all is it's like any other habit. It's like action is better than inaction. So just get started, do something small, and then you can sort of check that off your list, and it will get easier, right? It will build. It will be compound interest
Yeah.
on your future self, right? Development of yourself. So I think that's number one. And number two, I would say is like if you're anxious, if you're fearful, as what I said earlier, the only way to combat that, right, is to learn more about it. And so that is the next step is just to learn more about it.
Yeah.
You are always going to be left behind. That is the truth I had to really understand. There will always be somebody out there who knows more about artificial intelligence or new technologies or new methodologies in my field than I do, right? It's just
Yeah.
the nature of it. There will
Yep.
always be that. But what can I do, right? To understand like where do I fit in and what is a good pace for me. So I mean the pace you have to accept the pace of this new world that we're living in. And if you can't accept the pace of change right now, you never will because it's only going to get faster. So you need to have a mindset that basically you are not only moving forward, but you're happy about the progress that you are making every single day in moving forward. So I mean, that's how I would get started. Action and mindset change.
Yeah. Which makes our learning field, right, even more important. The coaching and supporting people to kind of identify what they want to do from now. Where do they want to get started? How they want to approach their learning and growing in, different tools or I think we are going to be at the center.
We're social learners at the heart too, right? So I mean, to
Yeah.
learn something on your own is important, but like it may be lonely on social networks. There's a lot of research on that too. So I would, encourage you to go out and see what other people are doing in real life in your industry, right? Or in your
Yes.
hobby,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
passion, right? Yeah. And how
Yeah.
they're leveraging current things. Like I mean, just here's an example. I one of the first things I thought was like, oh, cool. Wouldn't it be neat if I could come up with a way to predict what people like in the next cocktail they drink? Right? Kind of thing.
Ooh.
Right? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I have a short set of data here in my neighborhood where people come over, I get what they like, and I have capture that. And that really got me down the kind of rabbit hole of figuring out what makes taste. right? Not just like data you liked an old fashioned on this day and a Manhattan on this day and a margarita on this day, but what made you like it on that day? So it really I went down the rabbit hole of what makes
Oh,
taste on that, and then was able to sort of figure out, okay, is there a way to predict this one person who likes all of these things on different days in different situations where the temperature is out, or they're not feeling well, or, it's this season, all of those, or this is their age, right? All of those are factors that go into taste. So you can tell I'm getting passionate about it, but I'm saying, like, find that passion in the thing that you love, and then find a way, because now I'm leveraging AI to sort of help me sift through all that and things I couldn't have done before. But like, find the patterns in this information and just talk to it, and it'll find all of the patterns and create the themes, or excuse me, discover the themes and provide that a cohesive sort of pattern matching back for you, because that's really, really good at that. And I guess I would say, I mean, if I had to finish this off, and I never one, I'm not a person that likes to market myself. I really am not. I have a hard time doing that. But I would say, as I look back to the Disrupt HR presentation I gave, and I believe it was probably, I think it was 2023 or 2024. I can't remember. It was 2023, I think.
the
AI.
AI one? Yes.
My first one I gave, but basically the themes
Yeah.
were, are you as a person going
Yes.
to learn for AI, from AI, or with AI?
With
And I
AI.
look back,
Yes.
and that was like, Chat GPT had just come out like 6 months earlier.
Yep.
But I can't believe how that resonates still with me today, because there are so many people in the world that are just like, I'll use Chat GPT, but they get caught up in, like, basically their online presence feeding data and just making AI more powerful, and then know more about them. And then it's just like a loop where they're just stuck in it even more, and it's going to get worse. So, like, in other words, TikTok, you're on it forever, right?
Yep.
Instagram, you're doom scrolling on it forever, right? So your Snapchat, you're on it.
All
So,
data.
like, exactly, and it's all going into the same spot, and those systems are using AI. So and it's going to get worse. You're going to find a situation where you're going to be in a virtual world, and it's going to be made perfectly for you.
For you.
And
Yep.
every decision you make
Yep.
and interaction you make is going to make that even better for you. Right. So but my point in saying that is, like, you are just learning for AI, right? Your behavior is just feeding the engine, which is perfectly fine. And people feel like they'll be happy in most cases, but probably will be lonely in a lot of others. But they're just feeding the engine. And then the middle one was like learning from AI. So this is where most of our kind of workforce is right now. And
Yep.
you're learning how to do your job currently, but just a little bit better, right? Thinking the same thing, thinking,
Yep.
okay, how can I build courses, but just make them faster and better or
Yeah.
more, right? Kind of thing. How can I, create a better performance management model, but just like tweak it a little bit to make it better for
Yeah.
for broader use, or more specific around the rubrics or the skills or competencies we're measuring, or
We're
people at.
thinking just
Yeah.
in,
Kind of
yeah,
thing, right?
not,
Like, so you're
not
using
opening
AI.
up
Right, you're
the
thinking, you're
horizon.
using AI,
Yeah.
but you're using it in the domain that you're in right now, and you're kind
Yeah.
of focused on the current world being the same, just a little bit better, a little bit faster,
Yeah.
right? A little bit more. So I think that's one way to, or a better model for the same thing, kind of thing. But then there's this option of, like learning with AI. And I can't believe, if you look on the edge right now, this is what keeps me up at night, because I see some of like, software engineering is the canary in the coal mine for AI transformation in the workforce. And it's being revolutionized how software engineers are building right now, how they're talking, like literally talking or sending their AI agent,
Yeah.
or agents messages, right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, look at, I mean, what is the day, right? It is March 12th at
12.
4:42 p.m. Eastern, right? So the point being is, like, the quality of my answers is only as good as the time right now that I
Yes, for
timestamp it,
sure.
right? So go look at what is called OpenClaw.
Well,
Go
yep.
look at what is called Perplexity
Scary.
Computer, right? Go look at
So
what
scary.
Replit is doing, right? Kind of thing. Essentially, what they're doing is, like, you have your own personal agent. It sits, it knows you, it has access to your computer, it can do anything on the laptop that you can do. And all you have to do is talk to it and tell it to do it. And guess what? It's like a keyboard elf. kind of thing at the end of the night.
I
You
love
basically
that.
you basically said, hey, guess what? I'm going to bed, but why don't you do these 4 or 5 things for me and have it ready for me in the morning? And if your keyboard elf is not working in the middle of the night, I mean, you feel a little anxiety. But people are using AI in this way, but they're learning with it, right? They're basically taking what they're passionate about and they're learning a new way of working with AI in this new kind of world that we're in. It's not replacing the human at all. It still needs you to orchestrate. It still needs you to
Yeah.
direct. It still needs you to judge.
To
But at the
judge.
same
Yeah.
time, they're leveraging this to work in a very, very different way. So, I mean, back to what I said, just like are you learning for AI, from AI, or with AI? And honestly, I'm right in the from and with. But it is hard. It is really, really hard to keep track of it all.
It is. And I love how we're kind of wrapping this one up because by the way, I show your video. I've shown it to so many of my classes. Every time, we kind of do an introduction to AI, I say, look at this. This is a perfect 5-minute talk that is right at the beginning when ChatGPT just came out, and look how relevant it is. And you're right. It is. We have to think this through. How are we learning? Are we
Yeah.
learning from it, with it? Are we just eating it?
Yeah.
And Sean, where can people find you? Where are you hiding?
Uh,
Because
Usually,
I love my conversations with you,
if you
and
want
I
it
can
right, if
talk to you
you
forever.
yeah, if you want to get a hold of me, I mean, it's probably LinkedIn as Bengry, just my first initial last name. That's the best way. Or on X, which is just my first and last name, Sean Bengry, together. If you, I mean, you can look at seanbengry.com, but like that is just going to give you a whole bunch of stuff that I need to work on from an online presence standpoint. But if people want to reach out to me or have a conversation on this stuff, glad to. I think LinkedIn or what was formerly known as Twitter, now X, probably the best way.
Yep. Your keyboard elf can do that. SeanBagger.com. You can give
Yeah,
it some
yeah.
talking through it.
I'm running 2 businesses on the side with at
Yeah.
least my agentic workforce, excuse me, at night. And I will tell you, there's a new level of anxiety of like, oh my gosh, my agent is sitting idle because it can be working 24/7. So it's a weird feeling to feel like
Interesting.
talking to you, but wait a
Yeah.
second, my agent he or she's not doing anything, right? It is not doing anything. So welcome to the new workforce. Is like trying to make sure that you plan a machine's time, not only just orchestrating or serving your people.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, hold that thought because I would love for us, maybe our next conversation is in that. How
Sure.
do we now lead, right? The people and agents, and because leadership will look very different. I mean, we're already struggling leading people. So now throw AI agents into it, right?
I have a different perspective on that, so let's have a different conversation on
I
it.
would
Yeah,
love that. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Sean.
sure. Thank
Love the
you.
conversation. Thank you for joining, and keep leading with AI.
Try my best. You too, Lena.
Take care.